said, you got to go to the cemetery.
Okay.
So I went for, and I must have looked terrible because Father Brennan took me into the bookstore. Remember, he was the director or whatever, the supervisor. And he said, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Nothing." He says, "Oh yeah, there is something. What is it?" I said, "I don't like it here." "Well, go home." I said, "I can go home?" He said, "Yeah, you don't have to be here if you don't want to be here." I said, "Hallelujah." And I ran down the hall, jumping, almost touching the wall, the ceiling. I was so happy. I was gone for that time, and about 2 months later, I went to Cantwell High School, Bishop Cantwell High School. I got a phone call, and it was my pastor. "Well, now, Ned, you're home now." "Yes, I am." "Well, what are you doing home?" "Well, Father Brennan, he's an Irishman, Father O'Dowd. Father Brennan said I could go home." "Well, what does he know? He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know you. You're going back, you know." I said, "No." In the next year, I was back for the next 11 years.
Yeah, exactly. Jeez.
I never realized that.
No.
Ned, you're a really good mimic. Have you ever done?
Yeah, you have a good Irish accent.
Stand up.
Well, we went to Ireland. Me son and his wife, and me, my wife too. And he said, "Da, why don't you use your little mimic?" We said, "Okay." So I did the rest of the time, and we stayed in bed, B&Bs, and nobody. Maybe they were just humoring me, but they all, I'd call and I said, "We'd like to stay at your place this evening, tonight," and they'd say, fine. I did that the whole way through, and I guess I was too proud not to, and also too proud not to think that they were humoring me.
Yeah, you never know what they said after you left.
Oh, right.
There you go. There you go.
So kind. Ireland was wonderful, just wonderful.
Yeah, they're good people.
Well, look, I'm going to beat Johnny to the prayer punch today. And since it's the Feast of the Holy Rosary, how about if we pray a Hail Mary together in honor of Our Lady?
Feast of Our Lady of the Rosary.
Of the Rosary.
Agreed.
Very good.
Right?
Hail,
Hail
Mary,
Mary,
full of grace. The Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, and blessed is the fruit of your womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Amen. Great choice. Thank you, Bob.
Hail.
We should have done it in Latin, Bob.
Ave Maria.
I still remember how. Yes,
Nunc et in hora mortis nostrae.
yes, that's it. Well, who is this new gentleman? I don't think Frank and I know him at all or have met him, but he seems like
Us.
based on the little piece.
Wonderful priest.
Well, I remember you guys, but you don't remember me because I was too young. But
I don't think you would know Frank and Bob. Now, the one that you would know, I don't know if he's going to be able to join us later, is Bob Bono. You know him.
I know him also, yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, my name is Norm Supancheck. I joined the seminary in 1956, was it? I don't know. Yeah.
You got it. Yes.
The high school seminary, went through all 12 years and was ordained in 1968. I was very shy. So even if you were there, I probably wouldn't have got to know you because I was very shy at that time. And one of the priests told me, what was the name? I can't remember, but he said, "Norm, get out of here. You don't belong here. You're too shy. A priest has to be able to talk to people. You don't talk to anybody. You don't answer in the classroom. You don't do anything. So why don't you leave?" And I just said, "Well, I'll try to change." So I'll never forget the first time I raised my hand in class. Thompson was the teacher, and he says, "Norm, you're gonna answer the question?" I said, "Well, yeah." And so I answered. He says, "Wow, that's a good answer. I can't believe that came from you."
Was it Charlie Barr who said that to you, Norm?
No, it was not Charlie Barr. It was
Or BJ McCoy?
no, it wasn't him either.
As we didn't have Thompson
I'll remember in a
in the
minute.
minors.
We didn't have a Thompson on the first year.
It was Thompson, Pat Thompson, yeah.
Oh,
No,
he was a real young.
But it wasn't in the first
Yeah.
year. It was later on. I'd been in the seminary for about 3 or 4 years, and I just didn't make a lot of friends.
Pat Thompson taught us
First year
theology, first theology.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Lombardi.
It was first theology.
Oh, okay.
No,
Gary Lombardi just joined us, Norm. Can you see Gary?
Not yet. There he is.
Hi, Gary.
There he is.
Gary.
Morning, Gary.
I think the iPhone, Norm, if you're on gallery view, you have to swipe one way or the other to see the rest, because I think it only does 4 at a time.
Yeah, I don't know why it didn't come on my regular computer. That's funny. I was looking for it.
It never does. It never does when you're under pressure.
Isn't that true? It isn't that
It's
true.
when you're under pressure, and that's when they choose to misbehave. You're trying to demonstrate something really, really neat that you discovered, and demonstrate it to somebody else to show them how cool you are. It won't work.
There you go. There you go.
So that's
That's
nice.
exactly what's happening. I don't know. It's so funny. It comes on my iPhone under my email, but in my computer under my email, it doesn't come in. How funny. Oh, well.
You know, that reminds me of a couple of weeks ago when I was in a doctor's. My blood pressure stays generally in the low to mid 120 for the systolic. So it's usually pretty good. And it registered 134 for the nurse. And she said, well, that's pretty good for a doctor's for a doctor's office blood pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, the white coat syndrome.
The white coat syndrome, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
How are you, Norm?
I'm doing very well. I'm I don't know what else to do except be a priest. So I signed on to St. Matthew's in Long Beach because the guy there, Randy Cardona, was all by himself. And so I signed on here, and now he's off on a 2-month vacation.
Are you in charge, Norm?
I don't know if I'm in charge, but I'm running the show.
And it's St. Matthew's in Long Beach.
Yes.
That's kind of welcome home.
Oh, my brothers and sisters are so happy
Yeah.
because they wouldn't visit me when I was in Silmar, or San Fernando area. They wouldn't visit me. I said, why don't you come and visit me? They're too far.
Are they all in St. Matt's? Are they all in St. Matthew's Parish?
No. They're in Long Beach though.
Oh.
So had you officially, quote, retired, and are you like in senior priest status?
Yeah, I'm a
or-
senior priest status, but still operating or whatever.
Uh-huh. I'd be interested in hearing, maybe the rest might too, sort of like what's the funnest part about being senior priest, quote, retired, and yet back as you currently are, for all practical purposes, functioning as senior pastor?
Well, no responsibilities.
Uh-huh.
I don't have to worry about finances. I don't have to worry about different groups having problems. I don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. I just get to be a priest.
Right.
I celebrate mass and go visit the groups and enjoy being there. And I go when I want to go. When I don't want to go, I don't go. And it's kind of fun.
One of the messages I get from that, Norm, is that the employees, the lay people, really have been empowered to run lots of parish activities, much more than was the case 40 or 50 years ago.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our parish is also interesting because it's a gay parish. We have a lot of gay activities.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Rainbow Parish.
It is a rainbow parish, yes.
Rainbow Parish. I love it.
That part of Long Beach has been a gay community for quite a long time. I can remember when I was in campus ministry that I was asked to minister there to help out. At that time, Dignity was still in favor,
Yes.
shall we say, and I worked with them a fair amount, and and it was sad because it was right at the beginning of the AIDS
Epidemic, yeah.
pandemic, really, and there was just such a lack of care, and one of the problems that I found then, because there was no way of in any way legitimizing gay relationships. There wasn't any external, how would I say, external impetus or support for having permanent, long-lasting relationships.
Yes.
They had them, but it couldn't be in any way recognized or accepted by the rest of society. So what I quickly saw was the big problem was just how petty reasons for unfriending people or being promiscuous or that sort of thing, how that was just given free rein because there wasn't any other support for permanence of relationships. Does that make sense?
Oh, it does makes a lot of sense, of course.
I hope
I've
things
lived that era too.
Yeah. I hope things are different now.
Well, it's kind of different. I baptized the child for two gay men who wanted to raise a child together, and I baptized another child for two gay women who were raising a child together.
Welcome to Fred Lawrence.
Lawrence with a halo.
The light shines upon you.
Hey,
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Fred.
Oh wow, look at that light on him. Woo-wee!
It doesn't have to do with sanctity. It just
I don't know. It sure looks like a ray from above.
Yeah, it does. It's great.
Hello.
How come you
Hi,
not-
Fred.
hello.
Hello.
Glad to be with you this time.
So
Yeah, we
glad.
missed you.
Good to see you.
And you remember Norm, and Norm remembers you.
Very well.
And I remember Norm very well too.
You do? Oh my gosh.
Well, Fred, you just joined us as Norm was bringing up the subject of the gay community in Long Beach, where he's serving at St. Matthew's. And you were just saying, weren't you, Norm, that a gay couple adopted a child whom they brought for baptism, right?
I had two men, and then later on I had two women.
I did that once too in my parish, two women, and it was interesting because when I saw the paperwork and it had two mothers, and so I simply asked them, and they said they were gay, and they had their first child baptized, and I said to them, where was that? I said, would you like to do it at Mass or whatever? And they said, no, private. And then they told me they had their first child baptized in a neighboring parish, and there was a visiting priest. And during the homily, he denounced gays.
Oh no!
Oh,
Oh no!
And I said, and you stayed and had the child baptized? And they said, yeah. And then what happened was one of them was a medical doctor. When they arrived, one of them, her parents were Filipinos. And, you know, they're very pious Catholics, at least as we experience them, you know, in the here in the East. And you could see how relieved they were. You know, there was just, we baptized the baby with love as much as we could, etc. Because they were nervous about what would happen. There'd be a denunciation. They came forward.
Sure.
Yeah.
One of the saddest things that I experienced was when I was pastor in Claremont, Our Lady of Assumption, which, as you know, I think borders San Bernardino County. And in fact, it was closer to get to the neighboring parish in San Bernardino Diocese than it was to get to the neighboring parish on the other side. But there was a gay couple who contacted me who lived out in Riverside, about, I don't know, 40 to 50 miles from the parish. And they had told me that they had tried multiple parishes to be able to get their child baptized. And nobody would do it.
Wow, that's awful.
And so you know, they heard that had a pretty good reputation and all of that. So, you know, they asked me if I would do it, and I said, sure, I'd love to meet with you. And so, had no problem. They were both practicing Catholics as discreetly as they could be, but
sounds like pastoring to me.
Well, you know, when Francis was first elected Pope, a woman met him at one of his audiences and said, you know, she'd been to her pastor and, you know, the father of her child and she weren't together. So basically the child was born out of wedlock, and she went to her local priest to have him baptized, and the priest said no.
Oh my God.
So Francis said, you go back and tell him you talked to the Pope, and the Pope said, baptize the child. And if he refuses, bring him back to me and I'll baptize him. So I think I would lie and say the priest wouldn't baptize my child. Just get
Great story.
Right. That is. You know,
at any rate, we're bringing out the distinction between the priests of Yahweh and the priests of Baal.
There you go.
Thank you.
That's good. That's good. Hey, speaking of the gay community, does anyone know if, as a, and I use air quotes, the fringe group input into the synodal process? Does anyone know if U.S. Whatever the community is, that spokespeople had any input into the synodal process? Like I'm aware of some other groups that was a little pleasantly surprised to see. Does anyone know if officially that went into the U.S. bishops as part of the?
I can't imagine that would happen.
No, but didn't I've not read the report, but I think the NCR's summary of it, that one of the issues was about being more welcoming to the what do you call the TGB? I forget how.
LGBTQ.
Yeah, with the LG, there's a lot of letters.
A lot of letters.
RFTU.
So obviously some concern was raised throughout the country.
For sure, yeah. But I was wondering if there was any spokesperson / representative group of the LGBTQRSTXYZ community. I mean that lovingly, tongue in cheek.
Yeah.
If there was kind of an official input, probably not.
I would think not, but don't you think it's even stronger, the fact that there was not, and yet that kind of recommendation surfaced? Because, I mean, this came from all
Grassroots.
kinds of people, not just a particular advocacy group, but people who are, your basic person in the pew.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was aware of those inputs from readings, reading the pieces in NCR, that it was coming in from various dioceses and other organizations, but that weren't specifically identified with the gay community. As a matter of fact, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking, gosh, I wonder if there was input in other national churches. And I'll bet, I don't know. I was going to say, I'll bet there were in some of the countries. Like I could imagine that might be true, much more true in Canada.
But isn't there a whole lot of stuff in Germany? They're talking about this, I mean, some of those bishops have talked about redoing the whole sexual teaching of the church.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's also
That's the Archbishop of the Cardinal in Luxembourg, plus some Flemish priests in Belgium have published a blessing ceremony for gay unions.
yes.
So there's a lot of but in the United States, I think the two things, two official, they're not official, but most prominent Catholic gay groups are Dignity and New Ways Ministry.
Uh-huh.
And the bishops are very standoffish in both of those. In fact, New Ways Ministry has a list of gay-friendly parishes in the US, and parish from which I just retired is one of them. And it happened long before I got there. And we got some feedback on it from time to time.
Is St. Matthew's on that list, Norm?
I don't know. I have to check.
Yeah.
That's St. Matthew's in Long Beach.
Yeah.
Huh?
Wouldn't that be interesting if you were able to come back and report? Guess what? I spoke with the pastor, and in fact, there were a number of gay participants on the parochial synodal committee. If there was a local synodal
I
committee,
imagine there was. It was before I came, but I imagine there was, and I imagine yes, there were.
so that would be interesting to hear if.
Norm, how
Okay,
long?
I just did a little Google search, and the only thing formally that came up was the Archdiocesan Gay and Lesbian Outreach in Chicago did prepare a formal report for the Synod on Synodality. Now, whether that went to the U.S. bishops or whether it went just to the Chicago's report, that I don't know. But there is an 18-page PDF file that has that report. I'll email it to all of you if you
Yeah,
like.
that sounds great.
Thank you, Tom.
Matt, New Ways Ministry lists as gay friendly Our Lady of Refuge and St. Matthew in Long Beach.
Our Lady of
So if
Refuge.
you go on
too.
New Ways Ministry, Norm, it'll say gay friendly parishes and give them state by state.
Yeah. Well, we are definitely gay friendly.
Yeah.
Well, you're listed there, so.
Norm, how long have you been there now?
Just a couple months.
And to the extent that you know, how does a quote gay-friendly parish function? Specifically with
Or what
respect.
are you say they have a lot of gay activities. I just don't know what that means.
Yeah, we have a mass for gays once a month, and then we also have participation in the Long Beach Parade. We have a gay booth inviting people to come be part of our parish, that we do not reject them. And still little things like that. We have a gay group that meets every month. So just stuff like that.
And you mentioned earlier, it may have been before some of us arrived, that you have participated or officiated and involved with the baptism of
Yeah, 2 men with a baby and 2 women with a
Adopted.
baby.
2 men and 2 women.
My parish, which has been on this list for years, we don't have anything, any open gay activities, but we've been known as being
I should hope not.
welcoming to whoever wants to come. And we did have a couple of gay men, married men, who were very much a part of and one of them, in fact, was an architect and designed a memorial meditation garden in memory of one of our late pastors, and still comes faithfully and keeps it, even though they've stepped away from the church after Fundamentally Disordered came out. So they don't come, and I know them well. I've been invited to their home, and I spend time with him when he's in the driveway doing the thing. They're really good people, and parishioners really miss them, so.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we don't have any programs like what Norm is describing.
In San Francisco, one of the parish is the Holy Redeemer, Most Holy Redeemer, which is in the Castro district. And but George Farrick's ex-sister-in-law, his brother Dick's wife, Rosalind, and Al Crow's ex-wife, Kathy Cunningham, are a couple, and they have been for many, many years. They were very actively involved in Most Holy Redeemer and also in the Archdiocese of San Francisco. So we're, I forget exactly what roles they were involved with. This is in the pre-Corleone days. I don't know if they still are. So there are, and I'm sure, Frank, that the Most Holy Redeemer would also be one of those parishes.
In San Francisco, it's Most Holy Redeemer, Old St. Mary's Cathedral, St. Agnes, St. Dominic, St. Ignatius, and St. Teresa of Avila.
Yeah, my sister,
Ignatius is there. Good.
That's the University of San Francisco Church.
right, and my sister and brother-in-law go to St. Dominic's. I know that. There's nothing in the Diocese of Santa Rosa, is there? No.
Let's just see. Well, I don't know. Let's look if Santa Rosa is. Santa Rosa is not listed, but there might be an individual. Let's see if Healdsburg or anything like that is in here. No.
Frank, what's the list you're looking at, please?
It's called New Ways Ministry, which is
Got it.
Sister Janine Gramick and Father Nugent founded it.
Yeah.
And if you Google it, the first thing that comes up is LGBTQ friendly parishes. And then you go state by state.
Thanks.
So Norm, are you officially retired? What is your?
I'm officially
what is the
retarded.
status of a senior priest as opposed to being, I'm just retired and I don't want to be anything other than retired. I just want to get up in the morning and have my cup of coffee and do what I want to do and go to bed.
Well, my thing was that Father Randy was alone in this parish, and it's a busy parish, and he needed help. So I said, "Hey, I'll be glad to come and be resident there and help out whatever I can."
Norm, who pays your salary?
I just live on my retirement salary.
So you are retired. So
Retarded.
a senior priest
He's
who would
retarded.
be officially assigned to a parish.
Like the rest of it.
No, I'm not officially assigned, but
So you're retired in residence there. Randy accepted you and you said, I'll do whatever I can. And Randy said, fine, I'm going on vacation, take over.
2
that's
months.
right. That's right.
It sounds
2
like
months.
All right.
So really you're
Both hands out, right, Norm?
Some guy named Norman Supancheck entered the waiting room. I'm going to admit him.
Yes, then I'll get off my phone and go on the computer.
Okay.
silence is
Here you come.
There we are. Yeah.
You have a avatar picture.
Okay, I'm gonna get off my phone.
There you are.
Yeah,
Oh, good, good.
Okay.
that's a better image.
turn your phone off. Yeah.
Now, unmute yourself on the computer.
I'm unmuted.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay.
And
I have
Tim,
a similar arrangement that I'm officially retired. And after back and forth for 5 months, I finally got my pension.
5 months. Wow.
Yeah. They didn't understand incarnation. I had to explain to them that priesthood is forever, but incarnation is not. And so they have a rule that if you're incarnated and earning a pension while you are, then that pension overcomes whatever they pay you. But I was laicized, and I earned my pension during the time I was laicized, not. And so when they finally came around to understanding that, they said, okay. But I'm not assigned, but I have a room and help out in a parish in Boston as well.
So I think Frank, I think you just said that your pension does recognize and your pre-laicization years of priesthood?
Well, they don't, the thing is so loosely written, they don't even have that in, altogether. Norm, I was a priest and I left and
Right.
married and was married for years, and my wife died and I went back.
Oh, cool.
So I have I call them my 2 shifts. And my first shift, I had 9 years, and my second shift, so far, it had 6.
Great. So you're enjoying it.
Yeah, so, but I know what you like. I haven't adjusted yet to retirement, because I know about what you say about being a priest. And it's this weird system whereby, for 5 years, like I was pastor, and I formed all these relationships, and people formed me.
Yes.
The kind of thing. And then all of a sudden on date certain, it ends.
Yeah.
It's a strange kind of phenomenon that I'm still trying to adjust to.
Does Boston have a senior priest status, Frank?
Yeah,
So
I'm
are
a
you,
senior priest.
so you are senior priest?
Yeah, and I was actually senior priest in residence, but one of the local chapels went to the pastor and said, you have 4 priests in residence there and we need coverage. So he moved me. Now I'm a visiting priest.
Different label. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, he already had 2 parishes and a chapel, so he didn't want another one. So I have rooms in there, and I usually go in on. I spend most of my time in my own home, but I go in like on Saturday night and say mass on Sunday, and stay over on Sunday a lot and say mass on Monday. And then if they need me for a funeral or whatever, I'll go back in, and I'm scheduled to do some RCIA stuff and that kind of thing. There's a certain kind of pick and choose type of thing to it.
Sounds like you live close to the church.
No, I'm 35, 40 miles away. It's my home.
Oh,
Gosh, wow.
But if traffic is good, it's a straight run, so it's not hard.
Are we with you in your home today?
Yeah. I just moved my seat. Yeah, so.
I was just thinking it as you were talking, Frank, retirement has been no problem for me. I rolled over and I was already adjusted. Woke up that morning and I was happy. In fact, I kept myself away from the parish for 3 months just so that the pastor could kind of,
Yeah, I've done that. It's been
and
more than
I would go to mass at different, down in Novato, or
Right.
Of course I ran into people there that knew me, but since then I came back and I just go to mass at the parish on Sunday morning. I just go to the altar Saturday night, whatever, and then I get calls to do funerals or baptisms, or I've got a wedding coming up. So it's kind of but my home is in the parish, so it's a little bit different, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not so separated
Right.
as you are.
Right.
Right.
Norman is.
I've not been back to the church since I left on the 1st of June.
Oh, yeah. Well, I
And
took,
I help out in a different parish.
I figured 3 months, and then
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I had a friend here last night and he said, you need to go back.
yeah.
So, but I want to give the other guy a chance. Yeah, I don't want to
Right, you-
overshadow him or whatever.
Right, you two guys are doing what appears to be spontaneously one of the recommendations with regard to, quote, career counseling for clergy, one of the hats that I wore for 30 years.
Wow.
And we would always recommend that at the time of transition, that the Gary and Franks of this world get lost for, you took a brief one, but we'd say get lost for at least 9 months to a year to give the pastor, the new pastor, a chance. And that of course, the length of time depended upon how long the pastor had been there. The fellow who was retiring. And so you guys have done it spontaneously. And if you stop and think about it, as well, it's critical for you guys too, to have a taste of what's it like, as Gary said earlier, to be able to get up in the morning and say, I don't have to do a damn thing today. And except have a second or maybe a third cup of coffee and even get a little wired and play around on the computer and or what are those other things list of things I said, when I retire, I'll try this out, sort of.
Yeah.
And we'd talk about trying out different things and not worrying about sticking with any, and ultimately something will find you rather than you find it. And that often would happen. And
I think that's true to some extent, Bob, but my experience is different from Gary's because, you know, I was away from the priesthood for 40 years. And when I first retired, it was to take care of my wife who had a stroke for 12 years. And then after she died, I decided this was the right thing for me to do, to go back to the priesthood. So I only retired because my body was telling me that I needed to do it, not because I wanted to. Because I don't like gig work. You know, the BC's done this document on the priesthood called "To Serve the People of God." And had I been at the table, I think I would have entitled it priests, servants of the people, servants embedded in the people of God.
Mention that. Yeah.
nice.
And you know, because that was my experience. And of course, it was only 5 years because I started, I mean, my appointment letter from Cardinal O'Malley has a paragraph in it because I was 74 and a half when I went as pastor, telling me that to remember to submit my letter of resignation in 6 months.
In 6 months.
Well, you know, I was thinking, Bob, as you were talking, I say 3 months because what happened was I retired in August and I had September, October, and November where I had deliberately stayed away and I wasn't planning on changing that. But then in December, the pastor got ill and they needed me and he asked, would you come? So I came back and I had a regular Sunday schedule. And it was a natural way to coming back into the parish, but now not as the pastor. And
in fact, yesterday it was interesting. I've had multiple conversations with the new pastor over the past 4 months. But yesterday was the first time he said to me, you know, Frank, you're always welcome to come back here and celebrate Mass if you'd like.
Yeah.
That's great.
That might be, that might be a good thing, Frank, to take a weekend and go there and say,
I'll talk to him about it. Yeah.
Because now I go to Mass and it's interesting, of course, then COVID came along and COVID absolutely upended everything.
Yep.
I mean, and it's interesting now when I go back to Mass, I was in Calistoga last weekend, so I wasn't at the church, but the people are beginning to come back, but they're not the same people. There's it's a lot of new people. I walk out after Mass and, a few people will come up and say hello, but a lot of them just wouldn't really know too much about who I am.
Yeah.
They know that I was at one time pastor, but
Right.
there's no
Gary,
connection. Interesting.
Gary, when you say that you go to mass, does that mean that you celebrate mass or?
I
that
go on. I decided across town is a priest named Mike Culligan. He was pastor at St. James for like 20 some years. He finally retired, but he goes to mass all the time. But he sits in the pews.
Hmm.
Bill Donahue told me from the very beginning. He said, "You could do anything you want here." He says, "Your problem is going to be who you're going to say yes to for funerals and who are you going to say no to and things like that. You know, weddings and baptisms." But he says, "You can do whatever you like, and you come up here anytime you want." So I just go there. I go onto the altar, and I sit there and I can celebrate.
Wonderful, fantastic.
But that's what I do.
Yeah.
But Mike Culligan goes, he sits in the pews. You know, I think
Tom Welbers, you and the rest of us invited Norm Supancheck, and I hope we can put the baton in Norm's hand and just get a quick view. Would you step up and orchestrate that?
Good view of what?
What do you mean, John?
Yeah. I don't
Well,
understand.
What would you
some
like
of
to know?
us
What would you
don't
like to
know about your path since
Oh.
you were ordained.
Summary of
And-
his life. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what a path. I was ordained, and since I'd learned Spanish, they sent me to East Los Angeles to Santa Isabel Parish. Mike, what was his name, Mike? No. Anyway, he was an old pastor, very highly respected, and I'll never forget.
Bilingual,
Pardon me?
bilingual,
Bilingual.
yeah.
Now, he's an Irish guy, but he's bilingual. And when he came to the diocese from Ireland, the bishop asked him, "Well, what? I will have a nice parish for you." And he said, "I don't want a nice parish. Send me to the poorest parish you have." And Mike Sheehan. And so he said, "No. You deserve a good parish. You're a good Irishman." And he said, "No, I want to get the poorest parish you have." So he sent him to Simon's Brickyards, which was at that time in East LA. It was just a place where a lot of poor Hispanic people were working and making bricks and stuff like that. And he opened up the parish there, and it was dirt roads. And he finally got the church built, and he was starting masses and stuff. He said, "Now I need a school for the kids." And he was a saint. I honest to God, an amazing guy. He was a saint. He says, "Dear God, I need a school." And a couple of days later, a lady drove up over this dirt road up to him and said, "God sent me here to build a school."
Oh my. Wow.
And so he built the school, and the parish just blossomed. He was an amazing guy. He was an amazing guy. He was one of those guys who could read your sins, like he'd tell people, and in a kind way, he wouldn't say, miss something or something. He said, "Well, you forgot to mention you missed mass last Sunday, And, "Oh yeah, that's right." He was just a beautiful guy, just incredible guy. I'm really glad I got to go to him, but I was scared to death. And plus my Spanish wasn't that good. And so, but I learned Spanish really quick. I learned to give sermons too. They had some nuns there, and they said, Norm, your sermons are like a plane in the sky that doesn't know how to land. And you need to you need to pull it together, So it was interesting. It was just really interesting. I learned a lot. And then also I wanted to start a youth group. I got a couple of kids starting my youth group, and it was small, only about 5 or 7 kids in it. And so I said, I need to get more kids. And so I went out walking, and I ran into a bunch of guys and said, "Hey guys, why don't you come to our youth group?" They said, No. I said, "No, come, or I'll come looking for you." And so I had my kids there, and these guys walked in, and my kids ran to the other end of the room. I said, "What the heck?" What's going on? This is a gang. I said, nah, just kids. And so I invited them to come in, and I was pretty strong in those days. I worked in construction, so the leader said, "Bake me," so I did. I was very strong, and so they came and joined our group, and it was just incredible. I never knew they were a gang, though. I had no idea. No, I was so damn innocent. I had no idea. And when I left 2 years later, a bunch of women came up to me and says, "Thank you for what you did." I said, "What did I do?" I said, "Well, you took the White Fence gang and you completely changed them. They're going to church now." I said, "Gang? That was a gang?" I have no idea. It's neat to be innocent sometimes.
The white fence was very, very powerful.
Oh yeah. I had no idea though. I had no idea. I know they all wore the same hat, and they, had the gang kind of attitude, but on those kids.
I can just see you doing it, Norm. It's so great. It's wonderful.
Well, the good thing I didn't know they were a gang, because I probably wouldn't have done that. And then so I got moved after a year and a half, and it was really beautiful because Mike Sheehan wrote me a note. And he says, "You did so much for this parish, and you're leaving here is like a ton of bricks fell on my head."
Oh.
And he says, "He just really, really enjoyed it." But it was fun. I just had fun. I don't know. It was funny. My first day there, he says, "Well, your car is over there by Salesian High School. You can go get it. Here's the key, and go pick it up." And so I get in there, and nothing happens. I turn the key, and nothing happens. So I open the hood, and there's no battery. And a couple of kids come by and say, "What's the matter, Father?" I said, "Well, my car doesn't have a battery." "Oh, we'll get you one. We'll be right back." I said, No.
I promptly
I
found
said,
it
"I'll
in the
get
car, heisted it, and put it in yours.
We'll get you.
Oh, it was a real learning experience. It was so fun. It was so fun. And
Right about
we still
that
get
time.
together. What?
Right about that time, I was teaching at Salesian High School, which is right
Yes.
next to St. Isabel.
Yes,
And,
you were.
Yeah, and we had 96% Hispanic kids, 2% Black, and 2% Russian white children.
Yes.
Kids, and you were one of their sidekicks, buddies. It was great, just wonderful.
No, I loved it. And it's neat being innocent. You don't know any idea. I had no idea what gangs were. I had no idea. And so just maybe just taking these kids. So we take them to the beach and take them to the mountains. So took them up my cabin, the mountains. Just did a lot of nice things together, and we stayed friends for over all these years.
Where did you go after St. Isabel?
I went to Placentia in Orange County.
Oh my gosh, St. Angela Merici. Angela Merici?
No, St. Francis of Assisi.
Oh.
And it was so funny because the pastor there was nuts.
There were lots of them.
No, it was so funny because the day I came, there was a demonstration from the Hispanic section of the parish that come in and said, you're not taking care of our people, and stuff like that. And the pastor accused me of organizing. I says, organizing? I don't even know anybody. How can I organize something like that? Well, he was like that all the way. He just was nuts. And I told the diocese he was nuts. They wouldn't believe me until one day he walked down the street naked.
Because they were nuts too.
Walk what? Where?
It was fun. It was a lot of good experiences. Then I went back to East London. I asked if I could go back to East London. I went back to Resurrection.
That was a great parish.
Oh yeah, awesome parish. Loved it.
Darlene and I were married there. You were one of the witnesses.
That's correct. Yeah,
You and
I
Elle.
remember your wedding. Awesome.
I'm going to bug out for just a minute. I'm going to change my wireless connection. This is very choppy. I'll be back.
Okay, come back.
Norm, you came from a really amazing family. You want to spend a few minutes on, aren't you the firstborn?
I'm the firstborn. And 10 months after I was born, my mother had twins. They were preemies. And so she had 3 little babies. I remember one thing, she was feeding my brothers, she had both of them, one at each breast, and I'd say, well, I want some too.
You were.
She'd say, I only got 2. And as soon as we grew up together, we had so much fun together because we were close enough in age to really enjoy stuff. We still get together. I mean, now I'm back in Long Beach, both my brothers and I get together a lot still. And then after that, I had a sister. She's a nun. She's in Dominican in Michigan. And so she would come out for Christmas. And I had another sister, Doris, who was a sister of the Immaculate Heart Sisters. When they closed down, she got married and had 4 boys, little boys, both close to them. And then another brother, he's up in Washington and has 2 girls. And then another sister, Janet, who unfortunately died from cancer. She was on her 50th birthday, right, actually. And I asked her, I said, Janet, what'd you want for your 50th birthday? She said, I want flowers. I said, flowers? Didn't you get flowers when you graduated from high school? Didn't you get flowers from your boyfriend? Didn't you get flowers at your wedding? She said, no, never got flowers. And so I called all my brothers and sisters, relatives, cousins, and everything. She had 50 bouquets of flowers on her 50th birthday. Right? He was there enjoying them. A couple of days later, she died.
Oh my.
Nice touch. Nice touch.
That's fun.
Norm, one of your sisters was a physical therapist, right?
That's the nun, yeah.
Okay, and she brought you back pretty much painfully from your motorcycle accident.
Yeah, that was amazing. Amazing. The doctor just could not believe when I walked into his office. Because one of my legs was cut off. The other one, I lost 4 inches of bone. All my ribs are broken. Both my arms are smashed. And actually, when I went to the hospital, the doctor said, I can't save his life. But there's a Catholic hospital. There's a priest. So he anointed me. He said, no, I anointed him. You're going to try to save his life. Well, I can't save his leg. He said, no, you're going to try to save his leg too. A year later, I walked in his office. Oh my God! It just amazed. But there's a lot of people.
Thank goodness for your sister too.
My sister she had hurt me so much in the physical therapy, and my mom would come in, tears be running down my eyes. My mom said, Phyllis, don't hurt him. She said, Mom, I want to see him walk again, get out of here. And she was tough.
Didn't she pick you out of there and take you up to the mountains for a while?
Oh, she did a lot of things, yeah. But the biggest thing though is that, like, I was recovering, and it's tough. And she said, well, Norm, what happens if you fall out of bed? Because I had 3 casts on 2 arms, and actually just leg was, I lost all the bone and stuff, and it was cut off. But 2 casts on my legs. I'm sorry, 2 casts on my legs and 1 on my arm. I just had 1 good arm. And well, what happens if you fall out of bed? I said, Phyllis, don't. She just pushed me, fell on the floor, and then she showed me how to manipulate my body to get myself back in there. And then when I got on crutches, she says, oh, what happens if you fall down on your crutches? I said, Phyllis, don't do it. She boom, bam, on the ground again. I said, why are you treating me so bad? She says, well, that's the way you treated me when we were growing up. You guys picked on me so much, and now you're getting it back.
Well, I think Ned Chavira can testify to this, that almost every football team that we played on wanted Norm Supancheck.
Absolutely.
But they really,
Right.
I had no idea.
How tall are you, Norm?
6'2".
Well, but that's in your almost 80s. Have you lost any height?
I haven't lost any height.
Wow, with those reconstructed legs you haven't, that's great.
Maybe that's why. Reconstructed. So. Bionic.
I've got to tell you guys, when I refused to be ordained, I was given the quotes call, and I said, no, I'd like to go out to parishes. Norm called me and counseled me through that whole process. And then he took me to my first assignment and found out about who the pastor was, gave me a preview. I wasn't surprised. It was a very good parish, although I wanted a really poor parish. They didn't want to send me there. The second one, he took me there. Third one, he took me there. He was there all the time for support, because I don't know that anybody had ever done that. And Norm was just stalwart, just a constant spiritual support. And
well, you also made your own chalice, and I'm still using it.
That's how close I get, I guess. But I this is a good opportunity to, all these years back. Thank you so very much for your wonderful love.
Oh, no, we were close. We were close.
Yeah,
I loved it.
Yeah. Norm, when did you go to Alamany High School? I mean, I think I don't know if my brothers were there when you were there, but it seems like you were just, aside from New Holland, you were always very close. Did you help out at Perpetual Help sometimes too? I don't
Well, I lived at Perpetual Help, so yeah, I helped out there, and then I got to know your family there, and then also worked at. From there, I went to Alamany High School and lived in Silmar. I stayed there about 19 years or almost 20 years.
That's very close to my home parish in Newhall.
Yes, oh yeah.
Just over the hill. So, yeah.
Well, I was in Newhall for 6 years.
Is that right? I forgot about that.
And it was time for me to move. And I said, I'd like to go. Well, no, actually, the diocese asked me if I wanted to work in the high school. And I said, well, I don't know. I've never done that. So we'll try it. So I stayed there for 20 years.
Wow.
Did you retire from there, Norm?
No, I retired. I don't remember if I went to Silmar retired or what I did. But I went to
you had your
Silmar.
years in campus ministry.
I was in campus ministry for 20 years. Yeah.
East LA Community College, right?
Yeah.
And Cal State.
I was living in Los Angeles at that time, and I worked as 20 years I was 15 years. I'm sorry, 15 years in the campus ministry at Cal State LA and East LA College, and then 20 years in Alamany High School.
And you were the one who tried to push me into campus ministry.
And you loved it.
Yeah, I did. Well, the story there was we had I think it was our 25th reunion in Palm Springs. And I was dissatisfied for a lot of reasons, which I won't go into. And you had been continually pushing me into campus ministry, saying, hey, Tom, you'll love it. It's great. It's perfectly suited for you and all of that. And Bill Kersey was trying to pull me into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of us are pushing you.
And then I came home from that. I was at, where was I? Holy Name of Jesus in LA. And I came home from that, and I was walking up the steps to my room and picked up the National Catholic Reporter. And the very first, I got in bed, and the first thing I always did, because I was, again, kind of unhappy with a lot of things, I would look at the want ads in the NCR and see if there was any position that had to do with liturgy or something that I might find calling me. Well, the first thing,
liturgy was your thing in those days.
that was my thing. It still is.
Yeah.
It still is. But not the standard institutional type shit. But um, anyway, the first thing that my eyes landed on was the ad for that position that you and Kersey were trying to push me into. And I thought, gee, is God trying to tell me something?
Confirmation. Yeah, confirmation.
So I called Bill Kersey the next day and said I moved to apply. And then, he said, well, I'll send you the papers, but you will have to go through the search committee, which was something that nobody ever did in the Archdiocese of LA.
No.
But he had a search committee that vetted me, and then I was presented to the Archbishop, and the rest was history.
Yep, it was. You loved it too.
I did. I really did.
Just as I did, I loved it very much.
Yeah.
What year was that, Tom?
1983, 83 and 84.
Roughly. And you
Yeah.
remained in campus ministry until maybe
1994.
90. So 10
I was 5 years as in Cal State Long Beach, and 6 years as diocesan director.
That's where I'm going now, Cal State Long Beach.
Come again?
And that's where I'm going now, Cal State Long Beach.
That's where you are now. Do they still have a Newman Club, or I know
Yes,
they
they do.
have a Newman
They still
Center?
have a Newman Club, and they also have, I think, what the national organization is that works with Catholic students too.
Opus Dei or Legion?
No, please.
Norman, when was that motorcycle accident?
18. Let's see.
19.
19.
Roughly.
Yeah,
You were on your way back from Washington, weren't you?
yes, I was on my way back from Washington.
By yourself in the motorcycle
And then
or on it, I guess.
right?
I'd want to forget it too.
Yeah, probably around 19.
It was while you were in campus ministry, wasn't it?
Yeah.
How old were you roughly?
We're going to grade you on this.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say there is no quiz today, no grades, no quiz.
That's 38. I'm about 38 years old.
About 38, in your late 30s.
Yeah.
So you still look very strong, and you had said you were pretty strong back then.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I'm amazed that my health has been so good, and yeah. Specifically, since my whole body was destroyed in that accident. I mean, I broke all my ribs. One leg was cut off, and one leg I lost 4 inches of bone, and both arms were smashed. I was a mess. The only thing that was together was my head, because I had a good helmet.
So 38. That's a long
They reattached your leg, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a long time ago, and the state of medicine back then, say compared to today, and I have a little bit of awareness of what they do with prosthetics and limb replacement, and the kind of stuff that they use in the military to keep people that's been adapted to, and that, you're all pre that, so you almost literally came back from the dead.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah. In fact, the priest anointed me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the doctor said he couldn't save my life, and the priest says, no, you've got to try to save his life. He said, there was a priest at that hospital. It's a Catholic hospital.
Right.
So the doctor at emergency says, I can't save him.
Can't save
And
them.
And so the priest said, no, you got to try to save his life. I anointed him with the oil, whatever that has to do with saving my life.
Right.
And
So
then and he says, I can't save his legs. No, you're going to try to save his leg too.
So you must have been unconscious much of the time in the initial stages, right?
No, I wasn't. That's the hard part. I thought I was dying. So I said, okay, God, I'm ready. And God said, shut up.
Huh.
Where did this happen, Norm?
It happened up in Oregon,
In Oregon.
a place
Yeah.
called Coos Bay.
Yes, I know. I know where it is. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, I forgot about that accident. I remember it now that we're talking about it. I remember that I had heard about it.
Yeah.
Did they get you to Eugene, to the medical center there, or?
No, not Eugene. No, they're just right there in Coos Bay. They had a hospital, the little Catholic hospital. And
It's amazing.
I look back at that and I say, how in the heck they do? Because I lost a heck of a lot of blood.
So I suspect it's not what we would think of as a trauma center in Coos
No.
Bay. And
Although they had a lot of work with that kind of stuff because there are sand dunes there and people were always having accidents on the sand dunes. They were driving their dune buggies and turning over and breaking legs and arms and stuff. And so they had a lot of experience with fixing that.
It seems to me that when I was in Eureka as pastor, I had to go up to Coos Bay to that hospital to visit someone. And in my memories, it was a pretty good sized hospital.
Yeah, it's a nice, very nice hospital too.
Yeah, much bigger than you would think.
And the room they put me
have.
in looked out over a park where there were a lot of kids playing all the time and stuff. And that's, I think that helped me a lot because I said, damn, I gotta heal till I get out there. I don't want to stay in a room all my life.
Well, I remember a couple of years after that, it wasn't too terribly long, that I was on a trip with you up to, was it Trinity River?
Mm-hmm.
And we sort of body surfed through the rapids.
Yeah.
Which I thought was, I don't want to do it again. But I always have to say that, if one didn't know what you had been through, to see you, and especially to see you walk, you'd never be able to guess it.
Well, I was lucky. My sister was a physical therapist. She's a nun, but she's a physical therapist. She has permission to take off a few months to work with me. And I mean, it made me cry. My mom would come in and tears would be running down my eyes. And my mom would say, Phyllis, don't hurt him. And my mom goes and say, shut up and get out of here if you want to see him walk again.
Oh, to your mother. Oh my. She knew what she was doing.
Yeah, Phyllis knew what she was doing. She was amazing. Boy.
You had a hell of a family.
Oh my gosh.
So you are, a walking poster boy / guy for physical therapy, post-trauma. And I'm just so impressed with, the fact that A, you survived, B, you went through, months of physical terrorism, with someone who loved you, obviously, and was going to make sure you were going to turn out to maximize, what you had left. And
as mission.
And where I'm going with all of that is your sense of mission in life after that. Did it become slightly more focused?
Oh yeah. I mean, I said, because I thought I was dead.
I just scratched
And
my fingernails.
I just thought I was dead. So I thought, well, God put me back here for some reason, so better make use of it. Yes.
Wow.
It took a long time. 2 months in the hospital, 2 months in the hospital bed at my home with my sister working on me. 2 months walk in a wheelchair, 2 months on crutches, 2 months. There's a whole year of recovery.
Did you ever go back to the motorcycle?
Hell yeah. You're not supposed to get back on the horse if you fall off. I didn't. ride it regularly like I used to.
Mhm.
You don't write it now, do you?
No, not now.
Good.
I don't want to go through all that again.
You know, Norm, I wanted to get a motorcycle several times, and Darlene would always say, "Remember what happened to Norm."
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm driving along on the freeway, and I mean, these motorcycles, these guys go right through the
Yeah, they're crazy.
middle lanes of traffic, and I go, I just can't imagine it. I just cannot imagine it.
I
mean,
did. I did it.
I know, I'm sure I know. And look what happened. That's the deal. I think, you know, when I was in Healdsburg, my doctor and his partner, I don't think it was this radical, but I think they almost they wanted to have a policy of saying, we're not going to treat motorcycle patients because, I mean, this is just too dangerous.
What is?
They just felt it was, it would have been unethical for them not to treat them, but there was something, I remember my doctor said something about what we really just don't want to treat motorcycle patients because these guys are just accidents waiting to happen. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lawyers would say assumption of the risk and take the
Yeah.
consequences.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's like these guys who go out and mountain climb, you know, in the wintertime, then of course they get stuck and then you have to move heaven and earth, you know, to rescue them. And I say to myself, what, you know, I mean, look at all the resources that people have to pull away to rescue you for doing something so stupid. You know? But I mean, for me, it's like, I told somebody, roughing it, I'm not a roughing it guy. To me, roughing it used to mean slow room service and no color TV. That was it.
That's a keeper. You ought to write that one down, Gary.
Yeah, there you go.
But now I would say no slow room service and no smart TV. It would be the difference.
Welcome back, Fred.
Thank you.
You've been away for a bit.
This has
How are
been
things?
this has been so pleasant to hear about Norm and his adventures,
Yeah.
and I'm really grateful I'm here this week.
How good is that? How are you? How are you, Fred?
Basically fine
Health-wise, good, no change?
for a person with COPD, and
Uh-huh. And how have things been going at BC for you?
I have wonderful TAs, a lot of help because I don't drive anymore, and I have friends who arrange people to take me back and forth for the 4 days that I teach.
Great.
That's great.
I don't think Norm might know just what you're doing there now. Do you mind just a quick summary of what's up with Fred Lawrence?
Okay. Well, at the North American College, when Frank and I were there, the classes at the Greg were in Latin, and also that many of the textbooks. And so already in my second year there, people would come to me from my class and ask for help because they didn't understand the Latin in the lectures and they didn't understand the Latin in the text. So I helped them. And, it went on again in the next year, and it was difficult things like Father Lonergan's De Deo Trino Latin text, and suddenly it really dawned on me a little clarification by contrast. My pastor was Bishop Manning, and the last thing he told me was, I want you to come back and be a humble parish priest. And I guess the humility part never worked out.
I was thinking to myself, you're not the only one then. I'd be happy to be a parish priest. I don't know that I could be a humble one. But anyway.
So I started to realize that maybe my vocation was to be a teacher. And that had a lot to do with my relationship with Father Lonergan, and talking about theology and so forth, which happened just because I kept asking questions at the dinner table. And finally, one of the no-nonsense guys from New York said, look, why don't you just go to see Father Lonergan and ask him these questions? So it was very nice because he befriended me, and he really made me realize even then, very, very early, that there was such a thing as the intellectual apostolate. And so that's what I thought I was called to pursue.
I
And
saw that when you were in the seminar. I saw that you had very great mind.
are you kidding?
Yeah, I saw it.
Oh,
Oh,
lots of us saw it. So
uh,
you'd come into our classrooms and talk to us. It was just amazingly wonderful.
So I realized that's what I was going to leave at the end of the third year and study theology. I ended up going to the University of Basel in Switzerland. It was a German-speaking university. It was where Karl Barth was an old man, and I got to have him for 4 semesters.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And at the same time, you had a wonderful thing about the German university system is that you could go and visit other university classes or seminars, and nobody would ask any questions because people did that regularly all the time in the German system. And so actually there in the German university system, people took for granted that you were interested in learning something. It was quite a clarification by contrast from BC.
Yes.
But at any rate, no, there are many who do want to learn at BC. I don't want to put it down. And I also, we have a strong graduate program, and really brilliant students, some of who have come back to be my colleagues. So the wonderful thing is that by a certain train of miracles, my wife Sue, who's Protestant and Anglican, had the experience of God just telling her, do you want to go and listen around the Vatican Council? And she took that as a kind of thing that, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. And so she came to Rome that year. And by the time I first met her, I already knew that I wasn't going to be a priest. And she worked for an organization called Young Life, an outreach to unchurched kids. And I had a wonderful experience of realizing, well, we were sort of doing the same thing. And so we did marry. Dave Tracy arranged a marriage for us with someone who wouldn't make us sign all those papers that you had to do for missionary. And so his classmate, Bill Warthling, married Sue and me in Buffalo. And so it's been a long road, but I think a wonderful road. And I really do think that it was my vocation, and I'm still happy doing it. I'm in my 51st year of teaching at BC, undergraduates and graduate students, directing dissertations and so forth and so on. So God has really been so good to me. And part of God's goodness is letting me be in this group, and then again, letting me hear Norm talk about his vocation. I really think it's splendid.
You know, I've always admired you, Fred.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
But
because you have a brilliant mind. You have a great mind.
I don't know.
I always, my memory of Fred was always walking down the hall with a couple of books at your side, and I don't want to say your head was in the air, but it always seemed to me that you were, I don't know what,
Up above, huh?
sort of focused on whatever, you know.
As soon as I got to the North American College, the fourth year guys were calling me Spacey.
Oh,
Spacey. Oh,
I remember Fred waking up at 2 a.m, 1 a.m, going to the Jake, and you were in the bathroom with a book, or in a telephone booth with the book.
You wouldn't know it, but I used to, when in the dormitory, on the nights when SC was playing, my dad was an SC fanatic, and I became an SC fanatic.
yeah.
So I would go to a closet and listen to the games.
Right.
So,
Fred, I'm something of an SC fanatic too, because my son went there.
Ah,
Oh,
When
wow.
he graduated from SC. We went when we lived in California. So,
this is a good year to be an SC fanatic.
Yeah, it really.
yeah, it's been some rough years.
Yeah.
We were there when Pete Carroll was the coach of the football.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Carol was wonderful.
My father was a rabid
thing is-
US. Huh?
the thing is, one of the great things is that everyone who's a priest here is a wonderful pastor, and it's so natural for you to join because you're right in the mode that they are, and it's so edifying for me to be together with people who are seriously pastoral priests, not altar priests, but pastoral priests.
Understand what you're saying.
So it's just wonderful for me to know that the church, in the old system that we all came out of, we still had people like us, like you guys, to come out of it. It's great.
And even those that didn't become priests, like Johnny and Ned, I mean, they still are very pastoral people. They've done a lot of work in their parishes and educating people, helping people. They're awesome guys.
Well, and let's face it, the others who aren't with us, particularly the two Georges and Tim, have had a pastoral center to their particular careers and lives, and it kind of comes from, I think, our common origins and unique individual responsiveness to grace launching from those common origins.
Yes.
I agree with you.
I felt that we're all pastoral. We just found different ways of doing it. That's all.
Yeah.
I think
Amen.
the crucial thing is the idea of vocation.
Yes,
Um,
being called.
when I teach a class called Horizons in the New Social Sciences, and we do Max Weber, who was a great German sociologist, and he wrote two things: science as a vocation and politics as a vocation. And I had the occasion once to explain about vocation to one of my classes, and I had the wonderful experience that maybe the third or fourth year after I was teaching this, one of my colleagues stopped me and said he had this girl who came back to visit BC, and he asked her, "What are you doing?" And she was an extremely bright and beautiful girl, and she said she was teaching school in Chicago, in a very poor place. And he asked her, and I was surprised that he would ask her this, "Well, why on earth did you do that?" And she said, "Well, Professor Lawrence talked about vocation, and I thought this was my vocation."
Wow.
So
Wow.
he was kind enough to relate that experience. But that's what's true of Ned George Farrick and George Crook and Johnny. So clear.
Yeah, very much so. And Bob,
And
you
Bob.
you
Sorry.
have been attentively listening like one of the dogs that you take care of, paying attention to every word of wisdom that falls from the lips of his master. But you have been uncharacteristically silent. So clue Norm in a little bit on your background and refresh us.
Yeah,
I-
because
I was-
Bob, thank you, because I didn't realize, were you ordained to the priesthood event at one point or not? Or
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
I'd
yeah.
like to hear your history again.
I mean, the number of parallels right here, as Fred doesn't remember me, and that's because my undergraduate work was pre-med, and I was at medical school in Boston when I decided I really don't want to do this. And I went and talked with the local bishop in Worcester, which was my home diocese, and he was very happy to talk with me and said, "You're really interested in studying for the priesthood?" And I went, "Yes, I am." And he said, this was Bernie Flanagan. He had the tradition, which I learned after because I didn't have any seminary background. He would ask people, "Where would you like to study?" And this was during the time of the Vatican Council, 1963, 64. And I said, "Well, it looks like the action is in Rome these days." My reading in theology and religion, I went to Assumption College, and there's another sort of parallel. Fred, Ernie Fortin was my spiritual director / mentor, tennis coach. In those days, I played on the Assumption College tennis team.
He taught you how to do that spin move.
Eventually, well, he asked me, and I said, "The action is in Rome." He chomped on his cigar, and he said, "Well, I don't know you. And so tell you what, I'll send you to a pontifical seminary." I didn't know what the hell a pontifical seminary was. But he said, "Sounds like you're interested in studying outside the US." And so I said, "I'll send you to Ottawa, the University of Ottawa, St. Paul's College is pontifical. And if you feel the same way a year from now, we can talk again." In so many words, he said, "I'll check you out. You can check us out and see how this goes. Work as spiritual director, blah, blah, blah." And so a year later, the opportunity came up, and I ended up going to Rome. At that point, Fred had been there, Frank had been there already for a year. So I come into my second year. "Hey, Fred, I wish the hell I had realized what you were doing with the people in Latin, because I spent most of my first year in Rome, which was with second theology, trying to understand what was happening at the Greg, and finding, as best I could. Somehow I managed to take the oral exams in Latin at the end of the year. Although I remember Frank Sullivan, when I walked into the class, he was one of the exams, and he was one of the examiners. And I looked at him and I went, "Phew, a Boston Jesuit who speaks English, hooray." And I opened my mouth in English, and he looked at me and he said, "In lingua latina, Domne, in lingua latina." And I went, "Oh, and I passed, but just barely." So, and then in my third year, things picked up again, though I developed some medical issues, which eventually, undiagnosed at the time, I turned out to later in life discovered I was untreated as a diabetic. And so I ended up coming back to the States for medical care. At the time, everyone else was doing their third year of theology. And when it was time to return to Rome, and I did some exploration, my interest in medicine was primarily psychology, psychiatry. So I did a master's degree in psych and counseling during that year I was home. I sort of think of that as doing my deacon year. And when it came time to return, the bishop said, "Uh-oh, we've run into a little bit of a problem. you would be ordained in December, and the North American College has a policy that you have to be in residence for at least a year. Do you want to repeat the third year of theology? And I went, huh? So he said, I thought you might say that. And he said, just so happens, yeah, sure. The rector of the American College in Louvain was in-house in the chancery, we called it that back then. And I met with him, and within the hour it was set, I was going to do my last year of theology basically in Louvain. And I got a carte blanche because I already had my STB. You don't get an STB at Louvain until the fourth year, and you have to do an additional year to get the STL. All that conversation about Rome being a diploma mill was true. They think that, they're pretty sharp academic stuff. At any rate, I returned and did my final year at the Catholic University of Leuven, and it was a wonderful experience because the bishop said, the only thing I want you to do are the 2 or 3 classes you need to do, required by canon law for ordination, and whatever you do with the rest of your time. So it was fabulous. I took graduate level classes with doctoral students, combining my interest in psychology and religion, which has been lifelong, and was ordained for the Diocese of Worcester, and I returned to parochial work. But I continued to have an interest related to counseling and psychology. I got, for my first year back in the parish, I got the offer of doing an additional, doing a second master's. In those days, they called them Certificate of Advanced Graduate Studies, CAGS. At the institution where I had done the master's, and being a teaching fellow at the place, and so again, it was sort of a weird situation. So my first year back in the parish, I was in the parish part-time, but I was working full-time on the CAGS in counseling and psychology, with the goal eventually being to do a PhD. That eventually happened after a few years in the parish, with the opportunity to come to California. Go west, young man. Once I saw the sunset over the Golden Gate, I began to wonder whether I'd ever go back to Worcester. And then I truly believe God sent Mary Alice into my life. She was doing a postdoctorate. She was a physician, and she was doing a master's degree at the School of Public Health at Berkeley in maternal and child care. Our paths crossed at the Newman Center, where I was celebrating Wednesday evening 10 o'clock liturgy for students. Long story short, we had a connection. She was a graduate of Manhattanville, so very Catholic. Mary Alice Murphy, Frank. Yes, and she was literally third generation Irish on Long Island, and
So you're married up, Bob.
we were married. We got married in 1975.
Good call, Frank.
We got married in 1975, Frank, and I remember talking with my bishop and say, hey, I really love being a priest. What's the problem? And he says, well, chomped on his cigar. He said, there is a bit of a problem here. I said, well, I don't see that there's a problem, because I think the possibility of being married, being a priest, a Catholic priest, going back to the ancient tradition in the first millennium, what's the problem here? And so at any rate, and that's been basically my attitude all of my life. As a quick aside, I did my PhD work at Berkeley, interdisciplinary religion. What else? Religion and psychology. at the university at Cal and also at the Graduate Theological Union. In those days, they literally had the interface PhD program. So I was moving back and forth, going to a therapist and all of that. So, and I have two daughters. I have two grandchildren. I was married, of course, I got ordained in 1968, served in parochial ministry, and to this day, I still see no problem. And Frank, after my wife died, I don't think you know this, but on the encouragement of a NAC classmate from the Diocese of Stockton, I began a conversation with then Stephen Blair, the Bishop of Stockton, lovely guy now of happy memory.
Yeah.
And he said, "You're serious? You'd really like to have your ordination recognized?" He said, "I don't think there'll be any problem." And he said, "Given your background, I'm not going to send you off to seminary or anything." And so he said, "I think we can fast track you through." And I discovered after that it paralleled your process. John Cummins was one of the recommenders for me, who had known me. I had stayed in touch with him. He was the bishop here in Oakland. My spiritual director at the time was the abbot at the Benedictine monastery in Big Sur, Camaldoli Benedictines, and he wrote a terrific letter too. In other words, I had all the stuff, and Rome basically turned. The bishop was in shock, and I was in shock and pissed. But that's all behind me. The reason I was turned down was that I was, Frank, get this, I was too old, and B, I was too long absent from ministry. Gosh, I hadn't been absent from ministry at all.
No.
I worked as the director of a pastoral counseling service that specialized in clergy, families, mostly from the sister churches in the Protestant tradition, but also Roman Catholic clergy, those who were having issues with vocation and career counseling in particular. I can remember, no names, of course, but I can remember working with the president of a well-known Jesuit college, who's trying to decide what to do next with his life. And then over the years, very painful, especially the last 10 years of my ministry, working with women, Roman Catholic women with degrees in theology from all over the place, but mostly from around here, who felt a call to priesthood, and our center did the candidate assessments for priesthood for the Episcopal Anglican churches in this area. And so these amazing women coming through, and to this day, the loss to our tradition of these brilliant women. But since we're all connected anyway, I see how the Holy Spirit is working, no loss.
Bob, did you, when your papers, when your petition went to Rome, who did go, what dicastery or what office did it go to?
The old one, Frank.
Yeah.
You know what happened?
Doctrine and Faith.
You know what happened to my image is, it ended up on the stack, on the same stack of paperwork that that at the time the priests who were in sexual difficulty, pedophile files. And my fantasy is that some Friday afternoon, after 3 glasses of wine, some person in the dicastery kind of looked at it and just stamped no, and that was it. I didn't. It was my underdog bias, because someone said, if you're really serious about this, hey, your classmate from Rome is a cardinal, and you know him, and he'll walk that through, much as you described,
right?
How the cardinal did for you. But I went, no, I want to see if I can do it. I want to see if I can do it this way. With hindsight, I look back and go, okay, I was naive. On the other hand, I was knowingly naive in some ways, So I said, no, I wanted to find out. And with a lot of work, a lot of help with my therapist, who also is a Benedictine monk, who's a clinical psychologist, I have been able to work through and see how God's Spirit works in most mysterious ways.
Yes.
And,
You know,
and I never,
I always felt a little bad that, you know, like the bishop of some small diocese would be told no and would just give up.
like,
It just so happened that my bishop, Cardinal O'Malley, first wouldn't give up because he went back to Doctrine and Faith 3 times. They said no 3 times, but he kept going back.
Wow.
And then he's not someone who uses his position and friendship with the Pope to say, you know, can I have another auxiliary bishop or that kind of thing. He's just not like that.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
apparently in a corridor conversation with the Pope, he told, you know, casually, he told him what was happening. And the Pope told him to get my file and take it out from Doctrine and Faith. And it was a time when the Pope was very unhappy with Doctrine and Faith, and take it over to clergy.
Yeah.
And I always felt bad, say that the Bishop of Podunk,
Well,
you
you're talking
wouldn't have had
about,
that opportunity. And
yeah, you're talking about
Yeah.
Stockton, and you're
Yeah.
talking
Yeah.
about, you know, a diocese that had just recently declared bankruptcy.
right.
And who the hell knew Stephen
Right.
Blair? You know, it's like, and so that was just part of it. But with hindsight, the ministry opportunities that I have had since then, you know, that required me to exercise a lot of initiative and to invoke the Holy Spirit a great deal. You know, I am perfectly happy and content at this stage.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
And
They never told me why they said no, but at the time, I was like 72 or 73. So it could have been age, the same
Right.
thing.
right.
But I never was told why Doctrine and Faith said no.
Yeah.
And it was only because it got to this point. And I was gone for 40 years. I left in September of 1976. And the Cardinal called me on my birthday, November 23rd, 2006, to tell me that Rome had said okay.
Right. The parallels are amazing because
Yeah, and I have 2
I
children and
got
5
married
grandchildren.
in August of that year. So it's like,
I think the fact that, for instance, that my previous 12 years, and of course, I didn't work on anything I worked in politics. I worked for Paul Tsongas, who was a US Senator, ran for president.
I remember
And
him.
And I worked in government, but then I worked in the aerospace industry in California. I was the business ethics guy when that was big in aerospace.
Oh,
And so I didn't have, you know, the kind of background, kind of quasi-ministerial background, if you will, that you had. And that together with 40 years, but I think, you know, I retired at the age of 62 to take care of my wife who had a stroke. And she lived 12 years. So that was kind of a ministry in and of itself.
Yeah.
And that may have been a factor. I don't know.
right. But yeah, they may have made a smart move because I suspect I would have been dangerous given that I still, to this day, and I'm going to
Dangerous.
celebrate my birthday on Monday. I still haven't decided what I want to be when I grow
You
up.
grow up, you said that. But Bob, the nice thing is you could do what you had to do without the scriptures, you know, without having to be
Right.
answerable to a hierarchy. You know, I mean, it's like, when I
Although Blair was amazing because he basically said, what do you want to do? He said pretty much the same thing. You know, you're going to have to submit your retirement letter within a year. And in the meantime, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I own my own home. I have a really good retirement.
Yeah.
I want to continue working in palliative and hospice care. I have an entree at the VA hospital in Martinez. They're just saying, when can you come? When can you come? And so he said, all I'd ask you to do is come on Saturday help us out with masses and confession Saturday. Have dinner with us on Sunday, and then you head on home and head up to Martinez, and whatever whatever you want to do there. And so it would have been very. I mean, my fantasy is it would have been very sweet, but what do I know? It spun out, as they say, in a way that has left me very free. I love the ministry that I have through a very my underdog bias, a kind of a mostly down and out local Catholic church where the pastor is delighted to have me function as a elder care chaplain, which I do, visiting with folk in home and in nursing facilities, occasionally in the hospital, and it's costing him nothing, volunteer and stuff like that. That's my, as I said, my two-legged ministry, and I really love and feel blessed to be able to do that and get so much from the people I visit with. And then if you saw him, I have a beautiful black lab, almost 2-year-old guide dog for the blind, a dog in training who's recovering from medical issue, lying on the carpet over there, who's been with me most of the summer, and his health issues have resolved. So that's my 4-legged ministry through Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael, do foster care with them. And I grandkids, I love them. They're coming in. I might not be with you guys next Friday. That's because my whole family is coming, and we're going to a family wedding in Reno next weekend. And so I am truly blessed.
One of the things I find when I went back in a much more conventional way, kind of, to the Cardinal asked me eventually to go. I was in a temporary assignment because, frankly, in some ways, I don't think they knew exactly what to do with me. And
I can believe that.
So then they called and asked me if I'd go to this parish, which had been gone through incredible turmoil because it was very highly educated, very forward-looking, etc. And they'd sent in they tried to put it in a collaborative, and the pastor was a my way or the highway. You know, he'd say, "Is this a Catholic church?" and all that kind of thing. So there was a lot of healing that had to be done there. And I said, well, if I do something they don't like, what the hell are they going to do to me? I'm 74 years old. And so I told the parishioners when we went in, I said, you know, we got a lot of road to travel. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what our needs are as a parish. And, you know, and if we get these mandates that we're not sure, I said, we're going to put incense in the Buddha and then do what's best for the parish. And so that's what we did. And so people I'd go into the chancery, the pastoral center, and they'd say to me, how are things in Sharon, Frank? Because officially they blamed the problem on the parish, even though they were the ones who caused the problem.
Sure.
And so I got the cardinals to come out and tell everybody in his blog what a wonderful place it was, how vibrant and all that kind of thing. And one of the auxiliary bishops said to me one time, how are things, Frank? He didn't say the how are things, Frank. And I said, good, Mark, I think we're a good fit. I said, of course, you know, I'm probably a little more liberal than most priests. And he said, you think?
Yeah, think. Hey, Frank,
in terms of a match, it was just a wonderful match. And it was one of these things where the structural church couldn't appreciate, you know, how God would be working so beautifully in people that didn't exactly fit their box. And it was an unparalleled situation in my life.
You know, I can't help but just listen, particularly Bob, your journey. You kept saying, "What do you want to do, Bob?" You know, the authority would come to you and say, "What do you want to do? What do you want to do?" And I mean, at many of the milestones, you were asked, "What do you want to do?" And I contrast that And this is all at the same time that Gary and I were going through what we were going through in Los Angeles Archdiocese. And we weren't asked any questions. We were told
Yeah.
it was because I say so. You know, never a wonderment about what might be gifts that we might have that they could use elsewhere. Just get out, you know.
The only vindication I ever had, Ned, was later on I got involved in clergy education. And I began, I was part of a spiritual renewal group called Emmaus. And I began to get involved in giving priest retreats. And Tom Curry, who had been clergy education director when I became clergy education director, then he was running, we were part of NOCIRC, and he was the chair of our particular region, and he asked me to take it over because I guess he was heading off to become bishop in Santa Barbara, whatever it was.
Right.
Whoever his replacement was called me up and asked me, would you like to come and give the retreat to the priest of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles? To which I said, no, I would not. So that was my ability. Well, the reason it was a 3-week deal, and I couldn't imagine my classmates, like the Reverend Thomas Welbers or coming to a retreat that Gary Lombardi was giving, who didn't know his ass from a hole of ground anyway. So,
Oh God, we would have had fun with that, wouldn't we?
yeah, you would have.
Norm would have been there too, you know, and you'd have had fun too.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, but that was my only. I just wanted to ask Frank, did you have to get you weren't ordained again, were you?
No, what happened was, it was the day before Thanksgiving that the cardinal called me. He called me personally. And then the following Monday, I went in to the rectory in the cathedral, and there's a chapel there. And the cardinal and that bishop, Mark O'Connell, and I concelebrated. And after, so I was vested in an alb. After the gospel, I said the oath, and I signed papers of incardination. And he vested me, and then I was the principal concelebrant, and he had lunch for all of us afterwards. So that was it. There was no reordination or anything.
After all, you don't have to be reordained. I mean, you can't be reordained because
you shouldn't
have an indelible mark on your soul.
Yeah, I was thinking
ontologically.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like baptism. You don't get rebaptized.
That's right.
So,
Frank, were you laicized? You didn't get laicized, did you? When you left?
I did. I was laicized.
Oh, you did.
Dispensed. I was married in the church and all that kind of thing. Yeah. The whole Megillah. So I've never heard anyone having been de-laicized.
Yeah.
You know, so I was returned to the lay state.
Yeah.
And then I joined you guys and was returned to the clerical state. So I've had a few turns in my life.
You had been reduced to the lay state.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was reduced.
I hope we don't finish without a little feedback from Norm. This is your first,
I think Fred
your first taste.
My thing was for the LA guys.
Friday Zoom.
You remember Father Haley?
Oh yeah.
Oh, Haley.
Oh yeah.
Well, when Bob was rehearsing his educational experience, I couldn't help but remember Father Haley putting up on the board BS, and then he turned to us and say, "You know what that means?" Then he put PhD, and he said that means piled
higher and deeper.
Pile and dire.
Oh my God!
Well, Norm, what's your impression of this crowd?
I love it. I love it.
Willing to come back?
I will. I want to come back. If you let me, I come back.
I vote yes.
All in favor?
Welcome.
Oh, good.
Amen.
Right now I have to go because I just got an emergency call, but I've loved it. I love being with you guys. This is awesome.
Take care, Norm.
We all got to go. It's 2 minutes after noon. So
Thank you, everybody.
God
Yeah.
bless you all, and let
Good to
us.
see you, Fred.
Thank you.
God
very much.
bless.
Yeah.
Bob, I'm gonna be
Wonderful
in
having you,
contact.
Fred.
I'm gonna call you, Bob, later on or write you an email about something. So,
You betcha. Okay.
thank you.
Fred,
Okay.
I'm gonna send you an email about Trogain. You remember you talked about Trogain as being the Greek word that they use to consume the Eucharist, which kind of means not just eat it nicely, but scoop it down.
Yeah.
I have a little story to tell you about Rome on that one.
Good image.
But we
Good
all want to
image.
hear that.
Look forward to it.
Essen and Fressen.
And as usual, thank you, Tom.
You're welcome. Thank
Okay.
you all, and I'll get this out to you as soon as I can, and to everybody else. And they, I'm going to encourage everyone who wasn't here to watch it because they need to.
Sounds good to me.
Bye, y'all.
Take care.